In this video, I'll show you how to sew the puff and pencil Peachy Pants from start to finish. If you don't have the sewing pattern yet, then head over to our website before you start this video. Start by marking right and left leg on the wrong side of the front pattern pieces. This will make it easier to identify later when we refer to the right and left leg. The right leg is the one with the fly shield, like you see here. Also mark the ends that are sewn together on the waistband. Mark it on the wrong side of the fabric like we've done here with the white chalk. The easiest way not to get them mixed up is to place all waistband pieces with the wrong side of the fabric up like this. Note that the left and right pieces will be opposite of each other on the outer and inner waistband, like shown here. The inner waistband is the bottom one shown here with the long right hand side piece to the right, and this should have interfacing on the wrong sides. Iron interfacing on the wrong side of one of the fly guard pieces and the fly facing. Zigzag or overlock all the raw edges of the pant leg sides, inseams, crotch curves, pocket edges, and the curved edge of the fly facing. The remaining edges will be hidden in the final result. Now it's time to sew the darts. Transfer the dart lines from the pattern to the wrong side of the fabric. Fold each dart with the right sides together so that the two notches meet and the fold ends at the tip. Sew along the line and end at the tip. Do not backstitch at the tip. Instead, sew slightly past the edge of the fabric, then tie the top thread and bobbin thread into a knot close to the fabric. Press both darts towards the sides using an iron. You can add pockets to the front and back or leave them out. The procedure we're showing here is the same for both front and back. Fold the top edge of the pocket 3 cm or 1 1/4 inch to the wrong side. Press the fold flat with an iron. To secure the fold, stitch from the right side of the pocket 2.5 cm or 3/4 inch from the edge. Fold the remaining 5 edges of the pocket 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch inward. Make sure to trace the guidelines from the pattern pieces onto the fabric to ensure the pockets are positioned correctly. Place the pocket on the front or back piece so the top edge of the pocket aligns with the guideline. Pin the pocket in place, making sure the fabric underneath the pocket lies flat. Sew the pocket onto the pants along the edges, starting from the top right corner to the top left corner. Use a seam allowance of 0.3 centimeters or 1/8 of an inch. Now it's time to sew the fly guard. The fly guard is the part that sits behind the zipper against the body. Start by sewing the 2 fly guard pieces together with one of them having interfacing on the back. Sew the pieces together right sides facing each other, from the top of the curved side down to the end of the curve, using a seam allowance of 0.5 centimeter or 1/4 of an inch. Cut small notches into the seam allowance where it curves, making sure not to cut into the seam itself. Turn the pieces right side out and press the edge flat with an iron for a neat finish. Overlock or zigzag along the straight edge through both layers. Place the zipper on top of the fly guard so that the left side of the zipper tape is parallel to the straight edge of the fly guard, positioned 0.5 centimeters or 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Ensure that the zipper pull is placed 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch from the top edge of the fly guard. Sew the zipper in place along the edge of the fly guard. Using a zipper foot like this will make the task a lot easier. The fly guard should be sewn onto the right front piece of the pants. Start by laying the right front piece of the pants with the wrong side facing up. As you can see here, we've folded and pressed the fly shield over by 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. Place the fly guard with the zipper on top of the folded fly shield, ensuring that the zipper portion follows the edge of the fold, positioned 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch in. Pin the fly guard in place on the front piece. From the right side, sew a top stitch 0.2 centimeters or 1/8 of an inch along the edge of the fold on the front piece until the fly guard ends. You may want to use a zipper foot to make the task easier. Now it's time to sew the fly facing onto the left front piece of the pants. The fly facing is the part that covers the zipper from the outside, making it invisible when the pants are closed. Lay the left front piece with the right side facing up. Place the fly facing on top with the right side facing the front piece and sew from the notch 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the fly facing up to the waistband. Press the seam allowance toward the fly facing with an iron and then fold the fly facing out, ensuring that the front piece and fly facing lie flat with the right side facing up. Now sew the crotch front pieces. Lay the two front pieces right sides together. Pin the crotch curve to the notch on the left front piece of the pants. Sew the crotch curve together from the notch down to the end of the curve. Make sure to start the seam exactly at the stitching where the fly facing seam ends, so that the lines are continuous. Press the seam allowance toward the left side with an iron. Now the other part of the zipper needs to be sewn to the fly facing on the left front piece of the pants. Start by unfolding the pants so everything is right sides together, with the left front piece and fly facing on top. Fold the fly guard to the back of the right front piece and pin it in place, ensuring that the zipper is still positioned right sides together with the fly facing. At this point, only the fly facing and the zipper should be right sides together. While the zipper is closed and the fly facing is aligned flat on top, pin the zipper to the fly facing from the wrong side of the fly facing. Sew the zipper in place, ensuring it stays straight all the way down with a seam 0.5 centimeters or 1/4 of an inch from the zipper teeth. To ensure that the zipper is neatly positioned, sew the fly facing onto the left front piece with a visible top stitch. Ensure that the fly facing lies flat and even under the front piece by pinning the two layers together along the outer stitch edge. You can use the pattern piece for the fly facing to create a guideline for where to sew. Make sure to subtract a 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all around. Make sure the fly guard is not sewn in. Fold the fly guard to the back of the right front piece and pin it in place. Also, pin the fly facing to the front piece along its curved edge from the right side of the front piece. Sew along your guideline from the right side, following the shape of the fly facing to attach it securely to the front piece. Unzip the zipper for easier access whilst sewing. When you reach halfway around the curve on your marked guideline, stop the stitching and make sure to backstitch for a neat finish. Next, unfold the fly guard and pin it to the fly facing and front piece. Continue stitching from where you stopped in the curve and sew all the way to the crotch seam. Now it's time to sew the crotch of the back pieces. Place the two back pieces right sides together and sew the crotch curve from the waistband down to the crotch. Press the seam allowance toward the left side with an iron. Now it's time to sew the pant legs. Place the back pieces with the right side facing up and lay the front pieces on top with the right side facing down. Pin the side seams together and pin the inner seams together. Make sure to match the crotch curves of the front and back pieces. Sew both the side seams and the inner seams together. Press the seam allowance open and flat with an iron. Now we're going to sew the hem. Fold the bottom edge of the pant legs up by 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch and press flat with an iron. Then make another fold of 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch and press again. Sew the hem in place from the right side with the top stitch 1.8 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch from the edge. Now assemble the waistband. The 3 parts that have fusible interfacing on them will be sewn together, and the 3 parts without fusible interfacing will be sewn together. Start with the parts that have fusible interfacing. Lay the back waistband piece with the right side facing up. Now place the right front waistband piece on top with the right side facing down so that the ends match and pin the ends together. Do the same for the left front waistband piece. Place it right sides together with the back piece and pin it in place. Repeat the same procedure for the waistband pieces that do not have fusible interfacing on them. Sew down both sides. Now lay the two waistband pieces on top of each other right sides together. Pin them together all along the top edge and at the ends. Sew around 3 of the edges with a 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Trim the seam allowance of the waistband by cutting off the corners and making small notches where the seam allowance curves, making sure not to cut into the seam itself. Turn the waistband to the right side and press the edges and corners sharply with an iron. Turn the pants right side out and position the front pieces facing you. Now place the outer waistband, which is the waistband side without the interfacing, down against the pants. Make sure that the raw edge aligns with the raw top edge of the pants and that the side seams and ends match between the waistband and the pants. Pin the outer waistband to the pants and sew them together with a 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way from one end to the other. It's important to start the seam right at the edge. When sewing the zipper end into the waistband, make sure to sew as close to the zipper teeth as possible without sewing into them. Using an iron, press the seam allowance up towards the waistband. Now fold the raw edge of the inner waistband 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch to the inside, just enough to cover the seam allowance and the most recent seam. Pin the ends in place. Now close the waistband from the right side by sewing a visible top stitch along the seam between the waistband and the pants. Make sure that the folded inner waistband is included in the stitching. To close the waistband over the zipper, you need to create a buttonhole and sew a button onto the waistband. The button should be placed on the right waistband piece of the pants at the center of the marked cross from the pattern piece and sewn on by hand. The buttonhole is made on the left waistband piece of the pants at the marked cross from the pattern piece. The buttonhole should be placed horizontally from the cross, extending towards the side seam of the pants. Follow your sewing machine's manual to sew buttonholes. If your machine does not have a buttonhole function, you can either use snap fasteners or research how to sew buttonholes by hand. The inner length of the buttonhole, where the button will pass through, should be the same length as the diameter of the button. We recommend sewing a couple of test buttonholes on scrap fabric and testing that the button can pass through easily before sewing the buttonhole on the pants. Congratulations, your peachy pants are now done. And if you like them, then share them with us using the hashtag #PPPeachy.